back to She's Always On, here with my girl Kianna Smith. This week's episode is a little bit different. We're going to be talking about some actions, talking about some real X's and O's here, going through different teams and things that we've just noticed throughout the time. But yeah, so that's where we're starting off with. Kianna?
Wait, but first, before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about last night's game versus New York and Connecticut.
Yes.
This was a really big game because whoever won that is now first place in the standings.
Yeah.
And it came down to a last-second shot by Sabrina.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw Sabrina ice the game with a tough finish over DB, which is crazy because DB's length is so long, it's hard to shoot over her. But she used her body well. But what did you see in the last minute?
Well, honestly, I thought we talked about this too before. I think Connecticut struggled to find good shots, and their shot selection wasn't the best. So I think that kind of obviously brought them down a little bit. But there was a moment where they could have tied the game with they were down 1 point, 1 minute left. They could have had a 2-for-1 action, but again, just couldn't execute. I think for that last play, Sabrina, we talk about Alyssa Thomas too also being on her. There was that moment where it was 2 plays. Like, she had Alyssa Thomas, she had Wnba Actions, 2 of the best defenders on that team. You talk about one with a lot of strength and one with a lot of length and athleticism. But the thing that I noticed the most, that I think every young player should take notice, is the way Sabrina was so patient, even though she had so much pressure. Like, think about an Alyssa Thomas in your face, in your grill. She was just staying calm. She was probing, getting into the paint, but then didn't force up a shot, pulls it back out, gets a high ball screen with Brianna Stewart, then attacks the basket. Like, I just thought she did such a great job of not feeling rushed by the time and the score.
Yeah, it's time and score, clock management. She's shown that she's a true veteran PG in the league now. So that was dope to watch. And then Connecticut had a chance to tie the game with a 3 with that last possession, but it didn't go as planned.
No. What did you think? One, they wanted to run, and kind of what went wrong in that last play?
Yeah, well, I think they were trying to get AT to drive right and get that hammer action on the backside with Bree Jones and Wnba Actions for a 3. But Sloot, being the veteran that she is, just blew up that action, and it would force them to throw up a tip 3 from Ty Harris. And you kind of have to ask, like, are Connecticut's guards kind of a non-factor down the stretch? Because down the stretch, they look towards AT, DB constantly, and their guards haven't really gotten to much unless it's like Dejanay getting downhill in transition. So Sloot was able to cheat that play. So it was interesting. You could tell that that wasn't the shot that they wanted.
Definitely not. It was rushed. But then I thought Sabrina was smart because she saw Courtney, not Courtney, it was somebody, I'm blanking out who it was that got screened, but for the flare, Sabrina rotates out, tries to deflect that, and gets a little piece of the ball from that 3-pointer that Ty Harris took. So I think that was also really smart rotations. It was quick. She saw that her teammate got stuck, so she rotated, helped the helper situation. I do want to ask though, Connecticut was down 3 points, 4.4 seconds. I think there's a lot of theories that can go for this. Do you, if you're Liberty, do you foul if you're up 3 or do you not? What's your mindset on that?
Personally, I feel like it depends on personnel and the team you're playing. A lot of the times I say in the NBA, probably not, because the way they make shots at such a high rate from 3, you don't want to risk that. But you got to think of the team they're playing. They're playing Connecticut, who's not a high volume 3-point shooting team. So I think they played it straight up, and I thought it was beneficial to them. But yeah, I think it definitely depends on who you're playing, the personnel they have on the floor. In college, a lot, I would say, we can go ahead and foul, but
but I totally agree with you. I think it also depends how much do you trust your defense. Like, if you don't trust your defense, you can't even take the risk to let's say like, oh, we're not going to give up any threes, because what if your players are not quick enough or fast enough like Sabrina
Right.
to rotate out? What would you
Right.
do? So
Right.
that's the point. I think it just depends. So yeah, I've never my team, we've never fouled up. We never fouled when we were up
Yeah.
three in
I feel
college.
like a lot of coaches don't go to that.
Yeah.
Um,
I have seen it work though for other, like I've seen people do it and they
Mm.
foul, they're up three, because then you're sending the other team to the line, or if you're not in the bonus, I don't know. I think there's just so many factors that go into it.
And like, are you a good free throw shooting team? If they make their two, can you get the ball and make your two on the other end?
Yeah,
Like, so there's a lot of factors that go into just knowing your team as a
right.
coach.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, like Connecticut was up three. I know there was only 4 seconds left, but at what time are you thinking, okay, we can go for a two quick foul, or we need a three right here?
Yeah, I think in that situation, 4.4 seconds, that's not a lot of time left. I think
Yeah,
if you have to go for a three. I think you're gonna have
right.
to tie the game. Unless, I think when we were talking about Alyssa Thomas, it looked like she wanted to put the ball on the floor, go to the rim, unless that was her way of making the defense collapse and trying to kick it out for a quick three. But 4.4 seconds, we both know that's not a, like, it takes like 2 seconds for you to get that shot off. So you don't
Yeah.
really have much time. I think I would go for the three. What about you?
Coaches are saying switch everything, guard the 3 point
Yeah,
line, like,
you're
if you
exactly.
foul. Um, so
But
yeah,
also, if you're wide open too, and it's like 1 second left, I think you also got to take that. Like, you
yeah,
can't just be like, let me not get a shot off because we're looking for a three, but there's no threes open. So,
right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I completely agree. I think in that situation, they needed a three. They tried to get it, and it was just unfortunate that. So I want to start with Phoenix. They get really, really creative on how they can get Diana Taurasi open for threes. She's not as mobile now. Like here, they set that whip screen into a stagger. DT airballs that, but they just get super creative into it. Rebecca Allen knows she's coming off this stagger, but she knows who's setting that stagger for her. Diana Taurasi. So instead of coming off of it herself, she's gonna whip around and set the stagger for DT instead. But Phoenix just does a great job of just creating space for Diana, and getting her open.
I think too, switching that second screen is so important.
So Phoenix does this a lot as well. They run a ton of ghost screens, and it doesn't matter who it is. It's guard to guard, and they're just gonna tap. And just because they're such good shooters, and we know Rebecca Allen, they tell them let that motherfucker fly. Like they shooting it. They're shooting it. I loved this set as well because you bring BG out the paint. So the shot blocker is outside the paint,
Yep.
right? And you're setting a flare screen on the backside for Sophie. Now, Sabrina and Brianna Stewart decide to switch it, but Sabrina doesn't get under the screen. So now she's on the top side, and Diana just gets this back cut for
Yeah.
a wide open fadeaway. But if you go back and say, okay, Sabrina, get under it, right? But then you're just getting followed up with another screen from BG, and DT can come up and shoot that anyway. Leah and Diana run a ton of pistol action together, but they do it below the 3 point line. And this is
Hmm.
so important because if you decide to go under that screen, it's a wide open jumper within anyone's distance, right?
Yeah.
But if you decide to lock and trail, Kalia's getting downhill at her speed and her finishing ability, it's a bucket every time. And that's what happens right here.
Nasty.
Nasty. So they run it again, but this time the aces do a pretty good job guarding it. Here they go, getting into that pistol action. They don't have it right there, but boom, right into a ball screen at the elbow. You can try to switch this, but it's a dump pass right over the top to BG, who's a layup every single time. Tiffany Hayes right here is clipped, and the result is butter. Let's get into Minnesota, who
Yeah.
run a 5-out offense with a ton of pace and space. And I want to emphasize their pace. This is slowed down a little bit, but look at how fast her cuts are. Kayla McBride is elite at shooting at this speed.
She's so good in getting into that mid range too.
And then here you go. They get into every action so fast. They don't have it, boom, next action, boom, next action. It creates so much rotation in the defense
Yep.
that they get so many wide open threes. Step up. flare, ball screen. Boom, they have nothing, reverse it, ball screen. Like, it's just one action to the next,
Front.
dive. And now it's to a wide open three because everyone's rotating.
Yep.
Here it is again. Boom,
Yeah.
cut, ball screen, flare screen on the backside. So now JJ's out the paint. Boom, layup. Their spacing is so good, Edona.
Yeah. Well, we already talked about moving without the ball, but one of the things I really would love to point out is those wing cuts. I
Mm-hmm.
think wing cuts are so important because right there, you see, I can't see exactly who it is that's running out, but from the wing, she clears out. That opens up not only the left side for the drive, or she can kick it out. And I think the read and react actions are so important. That's what Minnesota does a lot of, is read and react. They're not, it's just like a free flowing offense, and they're all spaced out. And when
Mm-hmm.
you have everyone on the team who can shoot, drive, and all those things, it makes it so hard to guard them. And
Yeah.
then you see we have two back-to-back possessions, even with Connecticut. Same thing here. Drive, kick, wing cut, get out of there, clear out. Those clearing out, like sometimes really quickly, if people don't realize, but like you cutting helps your teammate get open, right? Like you clearing, bringing your defender down, clearing out, that helps tremendously.
Because look at how Courtney Williams has to help.
Yeah. And then
Mm-hmm.
she has to help, has to kind of dig in, and then her defender follows her as well. We talk about Connecticut being one of the top defensive teams. This is why they're one of the top defensive teams. They switch aggressively. They're constantly communicating. They mix in the going under, and they're just overwhelming. Like they're on top of their opponents. And then even right there, Dejanay Carrington, really quick pause, can you rewind? Where, okay, she gets caught on a taller player, right? But look how she's fronting her, making it hard for her even to catch the ball. That's like a smaller guard type of mindset right there. If you have a big girl on you, they tell you to front her, push her
Mm-hmm.
out, get her out of there. And what does she do? She does that, gets a deflection, gets a steal, gets the ball going her way. And now we have the aces. I love the way the aces push the ball in transition. First of all, even with having Jackie Young back, like homegirl pushing the ball out. And when you have somebody like Asia Wilson who rim runs, I
Yeah. Look
mean,
at
having post players who can rim run makes such a difference because even if, let's say,
mm,
they don't get the ball at the rim, they're pulling in that defense. And not only does that make the defense collapse, but it opens up the 3-point line for the guards.
Yep.
Same thing here. Kelsey Plum pushing it up.
It's a bullet.
Bullet pass. I don't know how. Yeah, it was crazy. The rescreening. I want to talk about how important rescreens are. Especially, it's like almost a known thing. Like if your player goes under, that's like a sign for the post player to rescreen because now look, she has to fight over. Now Jackie Young, she fights over. She fills up the 3-point line lane and gets a wide open three. You see it again. She goes under, rescreens, gets
Yep.
that wide open three. And now here we have the sky clear out for Kennedy Carter. Okay, first of all, we know how fast Kennedy Carter is. I don't even know. Her athleticism is crazy, but like look at this. Obviously, that's a staggered screen for Angel Reese, right? They are setting a staggered screen for Angel Reese into an empty side. Carter attacks the empty space instead. And people need to know that at the end of the day, it's a read and react situation. Sometimes players get fixated on like, oh my God, I need to get the ball to this person because that's what the play has open. But look at this entire right side is wide open, and Carter makes such a great read, gets, even uses that as a decoy and then gets downhill and beats her. And there's no help defense. And that's a miscommunication too for Seattle. You got to be in help defense there.
Right. Yeah. Ton of good actions in the W. And I love that these coaches create these actions for their personnel. It's for their
Yeah.
team. Like Coach Tibbetts, he's creating a bunch of actions for threes because that's what he knows his team can do. I think these coaches are just really smart, and it's
Yeah.
fun to watch and kind of break down and see the wrinkles in each of the actions. Like, okay, this is there, so this is the next read, this is the next read, and the next read. So I don't know, I nerd out about stuff like that.
No, same though. It's also so cool to see, like, even in that play, for instance, Angel Reese, like that play was for her. But
Mhm.
sometimes it's using your star players as decoys that opens up other people. And that's also a credit to having a really good team. But yeah, I agree completely with what you're saying.
Yeah, well, that's all we got for this week, guys. Just talking through a lot of actions. We know there's a ton of great games still going on
Mm.
within the last week or so of the WNBA before the Olympic break. So continue to watch that and the All-Star games coming up. So I'm excited
Oh
about that
yeah.
as well. But
Thanks.
catch us next week for episode 9.